To begin with, I love my son with all my heart, but he blew up his marriage by cheating and moved back home. I, female 55, have 3 children. My oldest is my daughter, 30, then my twins, 25 male and female. My oldest just got married to a wonderful man. My younger daughter's going to grad school overseas, leaving my son. Let's call him Carlos. He's always been a handful. He got married when he was 20. His ex-wife had a toddler daughter who I love, no matter what. I'm her grandmother. They had a child together, my other grandchild. He's 2. The global issue caused a lot of stress in his life, and he works in a fly-in, fly-out camp job. He's gone for 2 weeks at a time, then home for 2 weeks. He makes perfect money and enjoys spending it, maybe a little too much. Carlos cheated on his wife with a coworker. I am not judging him. I'm not perfect, but he chose to leave his wife and children and move back home. It doesn't make sense for him to rent an apartment or something for the 12 days a month he's home, so I allowed it. But he decided to be an idiot, in my opinion, and bring his dog with him. My grandbabies love this dog, but he's trying to punish his ex for telling him to leave. It's a beautiful border collie and the perfect dog for their home, which has a huge yard, lots of walking trails nearby, and even an off-leash park only a 10-minute drive away. I live in an apartment downtown. I am allowed a dog, but if I were to have one, it would be something sedate and non-shedding like a Maltese. I swear I tried watching this dog, but my son is irresponsible. He doesn't walk him much. He doesn't brush the dog. He's just holding on to the dog to lever his way into his ex's life. The last straw was this last time off work. He was away for 2 weeks and then came home for 1 day before flying off to the United States for a vacation with his new girlfriend. So I called my daughter-in-law, checked that she wanted the pup back. She almost cried with joy, packed up everything that belonged to the dog, and took him over there. My grandchildren were ecstatic. My son just came home 3 days before he had to leave for work and asked where his dog was. I told him the truth. He's calling me an idiot for giving away his pet. Also, I said that if he tried to get the dog and bring it back, he was not welcome in my home. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot, in my opinion. He's only thinking of himself, not you, not the dog, and not his kids. I'm not generally supportive of unilaterally giving away someone's pet, but I think it was entirely justified in this case. He brought it into your home without asking you, and he's never home to take care of it. He was intentionally making you, the dog, and his own children upset just to get back at his wife for not putting up with his cheating. Good job, Grandma. What kind of father takes an adored doggo from his kids? He's already destroyed his family by cheating and leaving them, but he chooses to traumatize his kids even further? Bravo for refusing to participate in the punishment of his ex and his kids. Bravo for telling him if he tries it again, he's out. From my perspective, you didn't give away his pet. You returned the family dog to a healthy environment. I believe you should also say if he moves out of your home and steals the dog again, you will report him for theft yourself. Also, calling you an idiot? You're nice to let him back into your home at all after that. He's always been a hothead because he likely hasn't suffered real consequences. Tell him that if he's old enough to get into this mess, he's old enough to figure it out. Stop letting him live with you. Time for him to handle himself and his own life. Again, maybe you should take away the safety net and let him learn to take responsibility, and perhaps he'll finally grow up. The truth is, he's very much an adult now and sounds to be very self-centered. As a loving mother, I understand that sometimes it's instinct to try and save your kids. However, honestly, I don't think you're doing him any favors. I don't see why he can't stay with his new girlfriend on his time off, as she is clearly his priority. You say he earns good money, so why would he not be able to rent a room or a small studio just to sleep? Stop coddling him. I like most of my neighbors, but not the ones next door. They have a 4-car driveway and a 2-car garage, but always have their guests park in my yard for some reason. We live in a semi-rural, semi-suburban neighborhood. There is no street parking. If you want to park on the street, you have to be about 75% in someone's yard. Last week, they had contractors over who drove through my yard to access their backyard, leaving deep, muddy tire tracks still indented across my yard. This weekend, they had a birthday party for their kid's birthday. They put a bounce house up against my fence. They don't have one. despite their backyard being half an acre. My dogs did not have it, so I brought them inside. Unfortunately, my kitchen window looks into their backyard, and my dogs wouldn't start barking because they were right next to our fence, even after I brought them inside. I gave up after a while and tuned them out. At least with them barking inside, most of my neighbors won't be able to hear them, minus the birthday party next door. The mother from next door came over to yell at me. Apparently, a bunch of the kids wouldn't use the bounce house because of my dog, and one kid who's afraid of dogs wouldn't stop crying. I said I brought my dog inside so she wouldn't be so loud, and that they should move the bounce house to a spot that isn't in front of my kitchen window if they wanted my dog to stop. They had half an acre to choose from covered by fence, and they chose to put it in the worst spot possible. She demanded I put my dog in a cage or lock her in a room where she couldn't see them. I told her to screw off and get her guests out of my yard. She called me a witch and said she'd call the police for my dog being a public nuisance if I didn't control her, and said that they'd moved their cars when the party was over. I closed the door and called a tow company, and they towed 3 cars before anyone noticed. They returned for the last 2 and got moved before they could take them. I told my friends about what happened, and they're split. In our area, it's pretty common courtesy not to park on private property without asking the owner. Some think I should have stormed into their backyard and told everyone to move or get towed, but I don't want to go into their property. They're the only ones who seem to think that's okay. Whenever I throw parties and have family over, I always have people park in my driveway or yard. Am I the idiot for having my neighbor's guests towed? They had 5 cars on your property, and they came onto your property to tell you to lock up your dogs further? Not the idiot, and hopefully they've learned their lesson. But please be wary of your dog. Check your yard for poison food and document all interactions with this neighbor. They may retaliate. They sound spiteful and out of touch. Cameras covering the whole yard are required here too. You gave plenty of warning. If a cop got called out, I don't think you get any grief over the dog making noise with a big party right next door, being thrown by the caller of the noise complaint. Given that she threatened to call the police on you, it's actually kind of hilarious that you called the tow company on her. Someone parked in my driveway once, and there were no spots on the street. They left their window open, so I honked their horn to get their attention. The owner popped his head out, but had the nerve to refuse to move the truck. Me being me, I opened the door, put the truck in neutral, and let it roll down my hill of a driveway. He was watching and yelling. I left it in the middle of the street, parked my car, and went into the house before he got to his car. No guilt. Your space is your space. My fiance, 26 male, and I, 23 female, have been together for over 2 years. I don't have a big family, just my dad and my older sister. My dad has always been a single parent, devoting his life to my sister and me, working over 14 plus jobs in the past 6 years to provide for us. I love my dad, and we have the best relationship anyone could hope for. However, my fiance does not get along with him. They have different opinions on so many things. For example, my fiance once suggested to my dad to sell his truck because it's been sitting there for years. My dad got offended because this was my grandfather's truck and he had no money to fix it. Another example, my fiance got mad at my dad at a party for talking about his struggle after my mom's death and accused him of collecting sympathy points. Still, Dad said that he always talks about it casually. Their recent disagreement was when my dad refused to give my fiance money to contribute to the wedding. My fiance complained, but I said my dad wasn't obligated to pay for the wedding. Yesterday, my fiance told me to look for, quote, someone else to walk me down the aisle, and I asked why. He said my dad refused to help with the wedding, and he should be grateful he's still invited. I got upset and argued that, for one, my dad refused to contribute because he had no money. He could not afford to pay. And 2, just like any bride, I want my dad to walk me down the aisle on my wedding day. He threw a fit, saying that I was trying to ruin his mood and get him upset on our wedding day. But I called him selfish for wanting to take away the moment I always dreamed of. Sounds cliche, but I'm like that over his disagreements with Dad. It's not fair given that my dad and I are on great terms. He yelled at me for calling him selfish. although it's our wedding, not just mine, and said that I clearly don't give a hoot if he's uncomfortable, then walked out. He's fuming and insisting I'm inconsiderate and projecting on him when I call him selfish. Not the idiot, but red flags everywhere. Your fiancé's trying to control you. He sees your father as a threat to his control over you. There is no rational reason why he's taking issue with the issues he's been having a go at you over. I've been where you are. Please, OP, look up the term coercive control. I wish I'd realized this concept sooner. You are the idiot for planning on marrying this man. You are dangerously oblivious to the red flag parade of signs your control freak fiancé is trying to drive a wedge between you and your family for what cannot possibly be any good purpose. I doubt your dad is the only person who brings out the self-centered idiot in him. But unfortunately, it sounds like you've dismissed a lot of his behavior. Just wondering though, if you're so close to your dad, why are you marrying someone who doesn't respect him? He doesn't have to be best friends with the guy, but some common decency is the bare minimum when you, and by extension your family, will be tied to this man for life. To be honest, your fiancé sounds emotionally immature, highly entitled, and like he's someone who's extremely inconsiderate of you and your wishes. Because, seriously, not wanting your own father to walk you down the aisle is ridiculous. So I would honestly rethink this relationship if I were you. X and I were never married, but we share 2 sons, Cole tween and Micah pre-tween. 3 years ago, he met his wife Janessa, and 18 months ago, they started living together with her kids, who are under the age of 10. The boys struggled with their dad being serious with someone, and I hated that for them, so I put them both into therapy. My ex wasn't thrilled. His biggest complaint was therapy wasn't something he believed in, but our court order states either of us can put the kids in therapy, as long as the parent who makes the choice pays, provides access to the therapist to the other parent, and doesn't interfere with the other parent's schedule. I take the boys on my time, so it was never an issue. Once they moved in together, the boys started to dislike things, and it only worsened when my ex and Janessa married. They felt like Janessa was trying to take over as their mom, which they didn't like. There was pressure put on them to call her mom and her kids brother and sister. I don't know everything. The boys prefer to keep certain things between them and their therapist. Still, after a while, the 2 therapists raised concerns about the environment in my ex's house and had no cooperation from him when they both tried to speak with him. It was agreed that I should try to amend the parenting time he gets. The judge decided he should go from 50-50 to every other weekend and a dinner every other Wednesday. X was not happy. He argued that he could provide them with a 2-parent home. The judge said that they were engaging in parental alienation by attempting to force the title of mom on his wife. He also told my ex that he should have cared more about his son's well-being and engaged with their therapist. X and Janessa are unhappy with the new schedule, and they've both attempted to complain to me that it was disruptive to their household to have the boys so little and to have more money taken out of their household. I do my best not to engage. Janessa's pregnant now, and they wanted to have the boys in the weeks leading up to the birth so that they would be present when she has the baby. I said no. I told them that it was not in the best interest of the boys, so they decided to bring it up around Janessa's daughter during a moment where the boys were not present, how it impacted their household and how much of a strain it was on them. I told them I didn't care about their household. I care about my sons and their best interest. The child heard. My ex and Janessa called me an idiot for saying that in front of her. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your ex and his new wife sound like hard work. Why would she demand they call her mom as anyone's guest control thing? I imagine. I hope you and your boys are okay. You keep on doing what's best for your kids. They're the ones that brought it up in front of their child. If they thought they could get you to agree with what they wanted because her child was present, well, that backfired on them, didn't it? Good for you for taking steps to ensure the best for your kids. I hope your kids adjust with therapy and more time away from your ex. Perhaps I'm a bit too jaded, but I'm immediately suspicious. What does she really want your kids around for? Because to see the birth of their half-sibling doesn't ring genuine to me. Have your kids ever complained about being made to do more chores than is fair for kids their age, or being made to entertain or watch their step-siblings? I was just about to mention this. She already has children. She knows darn well that a newborn is hard, but a newborn with single-digit kids around is harder. I was surprised to hear that they wanted 2 extra children to take care of, until it clicked that those 2 children would probably be taking care of something that made her life easier, like watching the other 2 children. My 25 female aunt has 3 kids, very young male, pre-tween female, and tween female. I didn't see them very often while I was studying at university, but now that I'm done with my degree, I've moved back to the same state and usually see them every other week when I visit my parents. They're their neighbors and eat most meals together. A few months back, her son was throwing a tantrum and he threw something in my general direction. It wasn't aimed at me and it bounced right off of my forehead. I guess it must have looked funny to everyone watching because they all laughed for 10 minutes. I didn't find it funny, but it wasn't intentional, so I brushed it off. Unfortunately, everyone's reaction made my cousin think throwing things at me was funny, and now he does it every opportunity he gets. He started throwing food, and what angers me is that everyone still laughs when he does it. Even though I've repeatedly told them, it just encourages him more. I've tried talking to my sister, who says she'll deal with it, and her idea of dealing with it is just telling him to stop once and then just shrugging it off when he doesn't. So since no amount of yelling or threatening has worked on him, I've decided to change tactics. First, I bought ice cream for all 3 of her kids and only gave him his share after he promised not to throw things at me anymore. It didn't work. I was fed up. His parents weren't doing anything, so the next few times I visited, I bought the girls gifts or chocolates small enough to be shared. My cousin was very upset, so I told him I wouldn't give him anything until he stopped throwing things at me. He, of course, threw another tantrum until they gave in and brought him what he wanted. But since I've kept doing it, my aunt is tired and asked me to stop buying things for the girls, but I refused to do so until she told them to behave. She says I'm being immature and that he's just a kid, which I agree with. This isn't his fault. It's hers. So, am I the idiot? You are the idiot. Your cousin isn't stopping because all the recognized adults in his life are paying attention to him when he does it. He's far too young to know any better, so threatening or punishing him from your position won't help. And sucking your other cousins into your plan is absolutely not cool. The appropriate response at this point is just to excuse yourself whenever he's at the table. Don't let yourself be a target. I'm afraid I have to disagree that he's too young to know better. I'm surprised at myself, but I'm going with not the idiot. Ordinarily, I'd find your tactics wrong, but someone has to find a way to tell this child that what he's doing is wrong. Your family members are the real idiots in this situation. They shouldn't have laughed the first time. They should have let him know throwing things is wrong because you could hit someone. Instead, their laughing reinforced his bad behavior. Someone had to stop it. It's your sister's job to parent her toddler, and it doesn't seem like she's doing a very good one. The devil on my shoulder is telling me to say that you should buy them all ice cream and throw his at him. However, that's super inappropriate and wouldn't go over very well, so definitely don't do that. I, 25 female, lives with my parents, 50 female and 55 male, because it's very close to my service and it's a costly area. It's been a week since I moved out, but I never needed to earlier and my parents didn't ask. So as time went on and I earned more, I put in air conditioning, made my room smart, as well as the house, Alexa, put an excellent shower in the guest bathroom, which I eventually added to my bedroom, and I bought quality furniture for my room, etc. My room turned out to be the best in the house because of my changes, and yes, I paid rent to my parents, quite fat by the way. It's been 3 months since they came to talk to me, saying it was time for me to move because they wanted to have their moment alone now, and I could live on my own. Of course I agreed, after all, and I was just living there for ease and convenience. I found a house and needed to make some changes, so in order to not have to buy it when I have it, I replaced all the sockets, bulbs, switches, smart, and the shower with common ones. I paid for them all and the increase in energy I paid too. I also removed the air conditioner and paid to plug the hole it left. Also, of course, I took all the furniture in my room and Alexa scattered around the house. My parents started complaining that I shouldn't take everything out as they were in everyday use. They were planning to move into the room that was mine, and with these changes I made my room worse, and the house in general too. It's just not smart. Everything I bought was quality. I said they asked me to move and I'm taking everything I bought because I needed them and had other expenses. I made a payment on the house, and these items were all bought by me, and all the increase in energy I had was paid only by me too, and that if they wanted to buy some, I could help search online, but I would take these items. They called me selfish because I made the house worse and removed these items in everyday use as they became accustomed to the smart home. They complained even more when I didn't want to leave the 65-inch smart TV in my room as a gift for them. I didn't leave it because it's new and it was too expensive. I moved a week ago, but they're still upset. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. The entitlement of your parents is on another level. What did they expect you do, OP? Leave all the expensive stuff you bought while paying rent when they told you to leave their house? Your stuff, your money, your rules. Enjoy your new house. We've made enough to retire charging you rent, so get out and leave all your crap for us too. If you were in a regular non-family rental and your landlord asked you to move for some reason, you would take your items and return the property to the previous condition. So you just did the same thing in this situation. You paid rent to your parents. This makes you a tenant, and as one of those, when you move out, you take your stuff. I think your parents used you until you made the house better and then decided to throw you out. They're jerks for assuming you'd leave the stuff you bought with your own money. Common use or not, they can buy smart devices and whatnot on their own if they want them that badly. You are the idiot. The TV and furniture sound reasonable, but you should have asked your parents about the AC. Maybe they could have compensated you for leaving the old one in, or they might have wanted to buy their own unit and use the existing holes. Replacing the light bulbs with random cheaper ones might also not be optimal because they might be unnecessary expenses if your parents would want different ones anyway. Also, maybe it would have been less work to just ask your parents for compensation for everything they want to keep and buy it new. Oh man, you are horrid. Absolutely, you are the idiot. First, you were there until 25, vamping off your parents' final days for your convenience, and then removing anything you had bought, despite subsidizing an unreasonable portion of your adult life. I feel for your parents. What a shame for them. My daughter, 18, graduated high school, and I hung a photo of her graduation party on the living room wall. She wants to go to a community college and will live with me and her stepdad. My husband recently earned his master's degree, and yesterday he showed me his graduation photo that he framed and prepared to hang. I asked where we would hang it, and he said the living room. I said, great, right next to Amy's graduation photo then. He said not next to it, but instead of it. I was puzzled. I asked why, and he said he didn't feel it was right to have his graduation photo, a master's degree, be hung next to a high school graduation photo, a high school degree. He said that both photos have different weight and value and suggested I take my daughter's photo down and hang his instead. I was fuming because he refused to let her photo hang anywhere near his, and he had claimed the entire wall. I refused and said that this photo had been here for months, and my daughter deserves to have it on display for encouragement. He got upset and said that I was making it a big deal and could instead use the hallway or something, but I refused. We argued about it, and he insisted on having her graduation photo be taken down and not hung on the same wall as his, due to the difference in degree value and weight. Also, he thought a high school photo wasn't hang-on-wall worthy and called me inconsiderate of his feelings. Finally, he said it was disrespectful to him and his efforts and said that choosing this hill to die on was ridiculous. Am I the idiot for choosing this hill to die on? Not the idiot. I'd hang it right over the toilet where his attitude belongs. So every time he goes, he can be reminded of how much of a pompous idiot he is. I also have a master's degree. I would never be so big-headed to do something like that. Wow, has his masculinity always been this fragile? How old is this man? And why does he think he needs to compete with a teenager? Why is he jealous? This is so strange. Is he also a teenager who excelled so much that he earned his master's at 18? Even if that was the case, he doesn't get to remove your daughter's photo to replace it with his. He sounds like a total idiot. If you get a PhD, will you hang his master's photo in the closet or the basement? Of course, he'd pitch a giant fit, and rightly so. Tell your husband that since he got his big boy master's degree, it's time to grow up and recognize that other people have milestones in their lives too, and that the weight and value of such things are not for him to determine. Something that, most people who've graduated elementary school have learned. Your husband just told you your daughter and her accomplishments are meaningless to him, and that she's so beneath him that she's not worthy of sharing wall space with his own. There are massive red flags. However, I will bet that this is not the first red flag. Hang up a copy of the divorce application next to his photo. My 18-year-old son, Eric, just graduated high school. I'm very proud of him because he has ADHD, and school has always been a struggle for him, but he's going to college and his future is promising. I was out with my 2 girlfriends. Both have children the same age as Eric. Well, I excused myself to the washroom, and right before I was about to go back into the room, I overheard one of them say that I must be so disappointed in Eric. Disappointed because he's not studying law or medicine, etc., like their kids. This got my attention, and I kept listening. They continued to talk about how he barely graduated, and then they made a few odd jokes about how Eric would probably follow in my footsteps and marry a rich older lady. Finally, they talked about my son's reputation and laughed about how he cares more about his face than his future, just like his mother. This hurt me a lot. I was heartbroken. Not only were they insulting me, but also my son. I walked into the room and they were silent, but acted as if they weren't just talking crap. So I didn't mention it and simply decided never to hang out with them ever again. But when I got home, my husband asked me if anything was wrong, and I just began to cry and told him everything. I've been friends with them for a year, and gosh, I don't even know. He was really angry. He had invited them and their families to go on a quick 2-day trip, and he called their husbands and canceled. When they asked why, he told them there was no way he was paying to take 2 bitter, mean girls that insulted his wife and son on vacation. Well, I got a call from the 2, and they were really upset. They said that I needed to tell him to rethink his decision, and that they were just joking around because their kids were looking forward to the trip. I told them that I didn't want to, but they said that I should have talked to them instead of crying to my husband like a weak witch. I told them to screw off, and they replied, "This is exactly why we hate you. Wait, sorry, are you gonna go cry to your husband again?" That stung a little, and now I'm wondering if I'm the idiot for not being straight up and crying to my husband instead. My sister agrees that I should have dealt with it myself, and that I went too far telling my husband. I mean, it's my sister. I tell her everything. A lot of my previous friends also used to say similar things about me regarding my husband. So after a while, you start to wonder if you're the problem. Not the idiot. I'm just joking is the universal mantra of every idiot bully. You owe them nothing. They're not concerned about their actual friendship with you. They're worried that they lost out on the trip and that they've lost their good reputation. In almost all marriages, you should share with your husband everything. Girls legit just sound jealous of OP's husband. Notice how all their attacks and complaints revolve around OP interacting with her husband. They're just mad that she has a wonderfully supportive partner and they got exposed. So they can't take advantage of OP's husband now. OP, these aren't your friends. Who cares what they think? They insulted your son, called you a gold digger, and then what? They don't expect you to tell your husband what's up? Girl, they just still want your husband to do things for them. It doesn't matter that you cry to your husband about awful people. He's your partner. Just block them and never think about them again. You are a full-grown adult, and I don't understand why you even have to ask this question. You get to have boundaries. Not engaging with people who are cruel and insulting is a very reasonable boundary. Not going on vacation with people who hate you is a very reasonable boundary. You don't have to justify communicating with your husband to anyone. let alone these immature idiots or your gossipy, unsupportive sister. My female father found out that my mother had an affair many years ago with his brother when they were still together. My father became suspicious and pressured all his children to take a DNA test. I was the only one of the 4 who was not biological. This screwed up my relationship with my father. I visited him every weekend, and after the test results, he cut the visits. He always gave some money to his children, but for me, he only gave what he was obliged by law to do. All of my brothers got a car and a trip to another country, a gift divided in half by my parents. I only got a trip because that's what my mother could manage on her own. It hurt to see my brother, 1 year younger, get everything. I lost in 1 month a present, loving, and helpful father, and every time I pointed this out, he told me to understand how hard it was for him to see the fruit of my mother's betrayal and that she lied to him for years, taking advantage of the similarity between him and his brother. For over 5 years, he barely spoke to me, beyond the basics, and excluded me from everything. Parties. It hurt a lot. After 5 years, under the influence of my stepmother, he had more contact with me, but we were no longer the same. Our relationship has always been rocky after that. The situation. I'm getting married to my beautiful bride in a few months, and we're getting ready for the ceremony/party. My father insisted on giving funds, a lot, to help, and although I didn't want to, I did accept it as long as there were no strings attached. Somehow, I think one of my brothers, he found out that he wouldn't walk me down the aisle, and he had a meltdown. He said that this was our moment as we planned it when I was younger, and that it was his dream to walk his only daughter down the aisle. At some point, he talked about helping at the party, which was the trigger. I said he forfeited that right by setting me aside for 5 years for something I wasn't guilty of, so I prefer to go alone. He again began to say that I should understand his feelings, that it was a very difficult time for him, and that he accepted me. I exploded, saying that I didn't give a crap about his feelings because he just ignored that he had raised me for 17 years and then treated me like it was an obligation. He looked shocked, and then he left. My stepmother called me later, saying that I broke my father's heart doing and saying all this, and that he is human, he can make mistakes, and that he was trying his best to make up for the lost time. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your father took out his feelings of betrayal on an innocent child. He was the adult. You were the child. Yes, he was suffering, but you were still his responsibility, not just for stuff, but as a parent and for your mental and emotional health. He made a choice to abandon you when you needed him. That did damage he can't expect to disappear because he wanted to. He can't expect to have the rewards of good parenting when he was a bad parent to you during those years. Actions have consequences. I hate see it from my perspective people because they never see it from the perspective of others. They demand people give them so many chances, but refuse to understand their actions have consequences. Sure, yeah, the dad was going through a lot of crap in his life at the time, but he actively, emotionally destroyed a child for his own selfish reasons, and then demanded that the kid be suddenly fine with him because things were hard for him. Things were hard for OP, specifically because of him. He doesn't get to go unring that bell. That's solely on him and not you. I hope you have a great wedding and that this doesn't overshadow everything. My parents are terrible at managing money. When I, 27 female, was little, my father gambled away all the savings, about $100,000 in risky penny stocks, which got wiped out in 2008, and we were forced to move into a single bedroom in a house for the 3 of us. Then my mom fell for an MLM, and you can imagine what happened. They lost the down payment to the house they were saving for. I begged them not to sign up for it since I saw it was a scam and showed them evidence it was, and they just laughed at me and ignored me. They lost about $28,000 from that. Then recently, they fell for a college sign-up scam and lost $32,000. They weren't signing up for college. They just needed a loan and tried to go through a private broker who promised to get them a school loan that they could use on whatever they wanted. I went with them to see this broker and told them it was a scam, and they ignored me. So basically, they were trying to scam the government and got scammed instead. I tried to pry the pen away from my father's hands when I got desperate as he was writing down his bank info and SSA. and he screamed at me that I was embarrassing him and did it anyway. Again, they lost money, and now they're homeless because their credit is crap, and they can barely afford even crappy apartments. They probably can't get that money back since they have little documentation on the broker and what he promised. So now they live in their car and are begging me for money. I have about $100,000 saved, waiting to buy a house, and they know about it because I stupidly told them I was saving for a house. And now they're calling me and showing up at my apartment asking for money. They also want to move in the meantime, but my roommate and I agreed that visitation from friends or family is max 1 week to prevent resentment. And if my parents move in, they'll probably refuse to move out. They're going to food pantries, and honestly, I can't find it in myself to be that sympathetic since they don't listen to me until they need my money. Am I the idiot for not helping my parents when they're homeless? Not the idiot. Do not give them money. You know exactly what's going on. You know what'll happen. You cannot save them from themselves. They are a bottomless pit, and they will bleed you dry and still end up homeless. Please don't give them a cent. Don't let them through your door. Don't do laundry for them. Don't take them food. I've seen so many situations where kids who have worked hard to overcome their upbringings have been sucked back in and have ended up stressed and with no money. You can probably tell it makes my blood pressure increase just to read your story. Make sure your credit is on lockdown. Parents will typically have everything they need to open an account in their children's names. However, if you don't give them anything, and you shouldn't, they may take it upon themselves to get something from you. Lock it down. I'm sorry, but your instincts are right on the money. Your parents require help, but not the kind of help they want from you. For now, you're relatively safe, thanks to your rule with your roommate. But when you get your own house, I'd consider not giving them your address to avoid harassment. They've ruined their lives. Don't let them do the same to yours.